Hello everybody. Today we are going to discuss about ionic bond. Most commonly, ionic bond is defined as a bond between metals and non-metals. So let's see how it is formed, ionic bond, and why it is called an ionic bond. So in ionic bond, it's all about transferring the electrons. So it is most commonly said that metals are those who lose their electrons, and non-metals are those who gain the electrons during the formation of ionic bond. So I'm going to explain ionic bond in the example of sodium chloride, which is probably the most commonly mentioned ionic compound. So we have in sodium chloride compound we have sodium atom, which is here metal, and chlorine atom, which is non-metal. So why it is called ionic bond? Ionic bond is called because we have ions in lattice of ionic compound formed. And why it is formed? Why it is formed? It is formed because those elements need to obtain stable outer shell configuration of its closest noble gas. So sodium atom will form that by losing the only outer shell electron, and chlorine atom will form that stability by receiving one outer shell electron. So they find a perfect partnership between each other to form that ionic bond. So in solid state, ionic compounds, or the ions which are from which lattice consisted is, are held together by strong ionic forces. But when dissolved in water, which is showed here in this equation of dissociation, when dissolved in water, they are separated from each other, and they are carrying electricity, or they are conductors of electricity, which is the reason why the ionic compounds are also often called electrolytes. So since the sodium atom has 1 plus charge, because it lost the only one electron in outer shell, and chlorine atom has -1 charge because it gained 1 electron in its outer shell. This equation, as shown here, will have sodium 1 plus and chlorine 1 plus ions dissolved in water. So let's see here some other examples of ionic compounds. For example, here we have calcium chloride. The only difference between sodium chloride and calcium chloride is in calcium atom here, which has 2 outer shell electrons, and each of those outer shell electrons are transferred 1 electron to one chlorine atom and the second one to the another chlorine atom. And when dissociation is shown, the equation of dissociation, we have calcium cation with a charge 2 plus. Cations are positively charged ions, while anions are negatively charged ions. And we have 2 chlorine anions, each of those with 1 minus charge. And here we have aluminium chloride, In this case, aluminium has 3 outer shell electrons, and in order to obtain stability, it has to lose all of 3 outer shell electrons. And when dissolved in water, we will have 1 aluminium 3 plus cation and 3 chlorine minus anions. And also, on the example of sodium sulfate, we have sulfur, which needs 2 electrons to complete its outer shell, and we have, in this case, 2 sodium atoms or ions, because they lose its each of these ions lose its outer shell electron in order to obtain stability in its outer shell. So because sulfur needs 2 electrons, the formula of this compound is Na2S, and the equation of dissociation is shown here. We'll have 2 sodium cations and 1 sulfur anion with a charge of 2 minus. So if this video was helpful to you, please hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. For any further question, please leave the comment down below. Thank you very much.